schizoaffective disorder. Schizoaffective disorder is a mental health disorder that includes a combination of schizophrenia symptoms along with mood disorder. So you've got hallucinations, delusions mixed up with bipolar or depression. And you can find in-depth information about schizoaffective disorder at HealthyPlace.com. So our first guest will be Elizabeth, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia at 19 before that diagnosis was changed to schizoaffective disorder a few years later. Then we'll bring on therapist Jenna Schaefer to talk more about schizoaffective disorder and ways to cope with it. So if you are here and you have a question or something to say, please go ahead and type that in, and we'll address it as the show goes on. All right, let me bring Elizabeth on. Let's see. So our first guest, Elizabeth, she writes the Creative Schizophrenia blog over at HealthyPlace.com. And she's diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. And she says the most debilitating symptoms of her illness are anxiety and hearing voices. So hello, Elizabeth.
Hello.
Are you doing well today?
I am. Are you doing well today?
So far. So you were 19 when you were diagnosed with schizophrenia, and 22 when they changed that diagnosis. And how old are you now?
41.
Okay, so that's 22 years of knowing that you had a mental illness, right?
Right.
Okay. So how did that diagnosis of schizophrenia come about? What was going on?
Well, I started having delusions and hallucinations while I was at college at the Rhode Island School of Design. Mm-hmm. I thought that people were following me, and I started hearing voices, and I was seeing a psychiatrist, and she put me on an antipsychotic. So I took it, and I remember one of the voices saying, "She can't take that." But I didn't listen to them, and I took it anyway, and I'm glad I did. Because then I started, after maybe 3 weeks, to get back down to reality and realize that no one was following me, and that the voices weren't real. And I was relieved that no one was following me, but at the same time, it was mind-blowing that this whole reality that I built was not real. So that part was difficult, but otherwise it was a good thing.
Yeah, I imagine that would be difficult because a delusion is something that somebody talking to you might question, but for the person having it, that is reality. That is what is happening. So, So you were being followed, and you were hearing people address you, the voices, and that is reality for you. You know, do you ever doubt the difference anymore? Like, that it was a delusion, but does it still feel real? What is that like?
Well, I don't have delusions about people following me anymore. Mm-hmm. I wrote an article about how my schizoaffective psychotic episode still feels real, mm-hmm. but I know it wasn't. And somehow I know the voices aren't real. Mm-hmm. They just have a particular sound to them that I know they're voices in my head, that they're not real.
Does everybody with schizophrenia who's being treated for schizoaffective disorder, are they able to know that these voices aren't real, or do a lot of people still get them confused, or does it have to do with treatment?
I think a lot of people still get them confused, even with treatment. I don't know many other people with schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia, but I know that, yeah, unfortunately, some people do think the voices are real.
Okay. Well, so let's see. You already answered that question. I had a question written out for you. So let's, as long as we're talking about the voices right now, what do they say to you regularly or usually?
Well, as we discussed, they make fun of me for smoking,
Mm-hmm.
which is stupid because I quit smoking 9 years ago, actually to this day.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so they say that I was smoking. They sometimes say bad things about me. Lately they haven't been very aggressive or lasting very long. And also, I haven't heard them in a month and a half, which is a long time for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful for that. I'm sorry, what was the original question?
Oh, I was just asking what they said to you, but they
Oh,
just
right.
put you down and tell you to quit smoking even though you quit. And do they ever talk about the people you care about?
When I was psychotic, they told me I had to keep an eye on my little brother because I didn't want him to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really talk much other than that time, which was like 22 years ago, going on 23,
Mm-hmm.
about other people.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes if I'm talking to someone, they might say she's lying,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't get too in depth with it.
So, what do you think your biggest? What do you do for yourself that keeps the voices at bay?
Well, anything can bring them on. Well, that's not true. Extreme anxiety can bring them on. So I'm doing cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and I do exercises and I learn skills to manage my anxiety, which in turn manages the voices.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've been doing lately is that if I catch myself getting extremely anxious about something, I ask myself, is this the type of thing I've gotten anxious about before? And usually it is. And I'm like, okay, you've been anxious about this before. I don't think this is something you need to be anxious about. If a worry is particularly problematic, I'll do a thought record, which is just I write down the worry, I write down evidence for and against it, and then I write down what's a different way I could view the
Mm-hmm.
worry, which is called reframing
Mm-hmm.
in cognitive behavioral therapy speak.
So you seem like you have a lot of self-discipline to be able to sit down and make yourself in the, when you're very anxious, to sit down and do something good for yourself. I think that's pretty amazing because I don't have that kind of self-discipline. So you mentioned, let's talk about the anxiety a little bit. And you write about anxiety all the time because it's with you all the time. So I know that anxiety often follows with bipolar disorder. So, everything is meshing together here. And you, the last article I read, you said that you were practicing ballet at home on YouTube videos, I think it was. But you were so anxious that you were going to knock over your glass of water that it was hard to concentrate on doing the ballet. And oh, hey, Aldine Fenton says, love your t-shirt. Normal is overrated. So,
Oh, thank you.
so that kind of anxiety is pretty heavy. It's almost like you can't do anything without having to address the anxiety. What is that like?
True. It's really, really hard. And I really trust my psychopharmacologist,
Mm-hmm.
and she's medicating me the best way she knows how to deal with the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But the medication isn't perfect. Like, it's not like you take medication and then you're better, right?
Right.
So I'm working really hard with my therapist to work on the anxiety. So, and my therapist is the one who does cognitive behavioral therapy.
So that's good for you then. You really enjoy that and would recommend that for anxiety?
Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy, I think it's supposed to be the number one way to deal with anxiety. Anxiety is its top success rate thing that they have. I also recommend, though, dialectical behavioral therapy, which is, it stemmed from cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's a mode where you both accept what's going on and you work to change it.
Okay. So, schizoaffective disorder and schizophrenia are misunderstood and they're often stigmatized illnesses. So, what is something that you want people to know or wish they knew about these disorders?
I think the number one thing I would like people to know is that people with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder are far, far more likely to be the victims of a violent crime than the perpetrators. I know that when mass shootings happen, a lot of the time it's blamed on mental illness, but the vast majority of people with mental illness are not violent.
Yes, that is very true. And that is important for people to know. And it's kind of like we're fighting almost a losing battle because every time somebody does something wrong these days, it seems like we're looking for a mental illness to explain it. And that's not really fair because,
No.
we're just not violent. I say we because I have bipolar and, that's stigmatized also.
It
But,
is.
but, I wish people knew that too. So you had mentioned that you think it's really important that people know that although you have a serious illness, you have a good life. So what kind of things are you grateful for? What makes it a good life for you?
I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my independence. And I'm grateful that I can write for HealthyPlace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're grateful you write for HealthyPlace too.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to let you go now, and I'm going to bring Jenna on. But I want to thank you so much for being here today and being willing to talk about all of this. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let me see right here. Candace, I wanted to address. While I'm happy Elizabeth is here to share her experiences, everyone is different in how they experience mental illness, even with the same diagnosis. Perhaps there could be a disclaimer that this interview is not indicative of the experiences of everyone, which would help to reduce stigma. And yes, that is very true. Interviewing one person about their mental illness will not explain or describe the experience for anybody else, because it is different with everybody. And you're right. I'm sorry, I just lost your name. You're right, Candace. That is true. So when we do these interviews, we're always just speaking to one person about one person's experience. And we hope that, the people who are watching can kind of see a little bit of what they go through in this person, and maybe not. Maybe they'll just realize their experience is completely different, and that's fine too. But thank you, Candace, for bringing that up. All right. So, Jenna, where are you? Let's see. Hello. Jenna's done a lot of work surrounding anxiety, and she's started a YouTube channel, and you can find that by searching Jenna Schaefer in YouTube. And I think here at jenna.schaefer.39 on Facebook, you post these.
That's actually my personal Facebook page. I don't have a professional Facebook page as of right now.
Okay.
I do have an Instagram page at jennaschaefer.therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So keep up professionally with me, that would be the best way.
At jennaschaefer.therapy. Okay. Yeah, I hopped on over there and I saw one of the videos, and so it's my mistake. I'm sorry. I thought that.
I do share them a lot on my Facebook. Yeah, my family likes to see them.
So we're talking about schizoaffective disorder today, and in general, like our viewer mentioned, everybody experiences it differently. But what are the symptoms that a psychiatrist will look for if he or she thinks a person might have schizoaffective disorder?
So schizoaffective disorder is actually two types of the DSM clarified.
Can you hear Elizabeth? I'm sorry. Can you hear Elizabeth?
Can I hear Elizabeth?
Yeah, you can't hear her?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm having a little technical thing right here.
Oh, no problem.
There we go. Okay. All right. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. Yes. First of all, thanks, Elizabeth, for sharing your story. I think that's incredibly great for people to come on and talk about their experiences. That's not easy all the time. But yeah, so schizoaffective disorder, there's actually two types that the DSM differentiates between. There's schizoaffective bipolar type, which is where we see someone that's almost like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder kind of mirroring each other. And then there's schizoaffective disorder depressive type, which is more like schizophrenia and depression mirroring each other. So with the bipolar type, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the one that Elizabeth said that she was diagnosed with.
Yes.
We do see kind of the swinging back and forth between a mania and a depression. Where more with the depressive type, we see the deep depression part and not so much the mania. And then what's common between both of them is the presence of psychosis and delusional thought processes. So those would be more of the positive schizophrenia symptoms too.
Okay. So yeah, I see that positive symptoms and negative symptoms. What does that mean? That's not a judgment call, right? I mean, okay.
No, definitely not a judgment call. So someone with schizophrenia has, and schizoaffective disorder, positive symptoms are more of the delusional realm of things and the psychosis. So Some people might hear things, some people might see things. The out of touch with reality part that we think of when we think of schizophrenia or psychotic disorder, those are the positive symptoms. And then we have the negative symptoms, which are not the psychosis part. So that is more like struggles with meeting like daily living, something we call anhedonia, which is kind of like a flat affect mood. It can be depression, it can be anxiety. The other parts that, and those parts are the ones that are usually not treated with medication, by the way. When we put people on antipsychotic meds, and we're treating the positive symptoms of schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. So those are the differences between positive and negative, the other type.
Okay. Now, like I have bipolar disorder, and my doctor decided I had it because I had some delusions. And I'm just wondering, why can one person be depressed with a delusion and somebody else have schizoaffective disorder?
That's an excellent question, and it is kind of a gray area. I will say before I give kind of my answer to that, what I believe it is, and kind of what I think is this differentiates between the two, that not everything fits in a nice little box when it comes to mental health diagnoses. It's the person that said that everyone's experience is different. That is absolutely true. I will say that usually we look at the severity of the psychosis with schizoaffective disorder. Is usually more severe and more constant. Like it would be in someone that has schizophrenia, where someone with bipolar disorder that has psychotic features is what that's called. They might experience psychosis maybe only when they're manic or maybe only when they're depressed. It might not be as continuous and ongoing as someone that has schizoaffective, where it's basically all the time.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. What we're going to talk about treatment. So let me just read. Aldine Fenton says CBT is amazing. It helps you to reframe your thoughts. It has helped me a lot. DBT is good too. You should also check out some Schema therapy. And he talks about some natural supplements that might help too. So let's talk a little bit about that. Natural supplements can help us stay balanced. Are they a substitute for psychiatric medication?
No. As much as I think it's great to take natural supplements, and I take them myself too, for overall health, it can't hurt. I think when we are talking about psychosis, the key to treating psychosis is absolutely antipsychotic medication. Therapy isn't even going to help with the psychosis. That part really does need to be controlled before someone can even work on things in psychotherapy. The thoughts that someone's having when they're psychotic are very different than like the thoughts that someone might be having due to anxiety. So antipsychotic medication is essential for people that have schizoaffective and schizophrenia to be able to live a functional life. That supplements can't help with that. It really is important. I think also, I will say too, with things like depression, anxiety, things that aren't considered as, I'm going to use the term serious, not that those things aren't serious, is something like schizoaffective or schizophrenia. I still think that there are definitely times where people will benefit from medications as well. And not even benefit, but need them to be able to function. And that's okay.
I feel like I need them. It took me about 20 years to come to that realization, but, I feel like I need them. So what is schema therapy?
Schema therapy is this idea. So a schema is kind of how I'm going to try to break this down as simple as I can, to the way that you have an event and kind of like the way that your brain processes that event. That's kind of my understanding. I don't do schema therapy. This isn't something I'm kind of recalling back in grad school when we talked about it for an hour. But my understanding is that you're kind of like your automatic thought processes around different, and like, there's a whole bunch of different schemas you can fall into. And the main idea, again, if you want to know more about schema therapy, I highly suggest looking it up online to get that information from someone that really knows what they're talking about. But it is to try to change your schema around different things.
Kind of like a extravagant reframe.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Okay.
We do that in CBT too. So.
Yeah, Elizabeth mentioned writing out, how she could look at something differently. So treatment, you recommend that, well, you think that somebody who's having delusions should be on antipsychotics. What other kind of treatments or coping skills might somebody want to try?
Psychotherapy can be really helpful to manage the other symptoms that come along with schizoaffective disorder or bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. It's usually not just psychosis. There are other things. In Elizabeth's case, we talked about having really bad anxiety and crippling anxiety. And CBT or psychotherapy can absolutely address those issues once the psychosis is more controlled. So once that's not as prominent, those other issues can definitely be addressed in therapy. Also, just sometimes people can really benefit that have psychotic disorders just from like life skills training. I have a very close relative that has the diagnosis of schizophrenia. And that person, can struggle with things like taking a shower, changing their clothes, things like that. So that can be addressed, in therapy too. The last thing I'll say that can be really helpful for people too are support groups. I know people that have been diagnosed with schizoaffective and schizophrenia that really do find help in support groups too. Just, the idea that they're not alone, that there are other people out there that have these experiences can be really beneficial.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything I maybe forgot? Do you have anything you want to add?
I do. I did want to touch on one thing that Elizabeth said too, is that when you guys were talking about if she knows that when she's psychotic, if she knows or out of touch with reality, if she knows that that's real or not real, and how it can feel exceptionally real. There are cases of people that have schizoaffective or schizophrenia that do not know that their hallucinations and delusions are not real. There's a term for it, and I'm drawing a blank on how to exactly pronounce it. I think it's called agnusa. There's with an A, and there's like a nusa in there somewhere.
AG.
Yeah,
agnosia.
On my phone right now. And I watched a really good talk on this too, because people that have that symptom, it's a symptom that some people with a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder have. Not everyone does, but the people that do have this symptom, even with medication, still don't know that what they're experiencing is not real. So they can't differentiate between reality and being out of their psychotic processes, being out of touch with reality. So that can get exceptionally more difficult to treat versus someone that is able to know that they're psychotic or that they're out of touch with reality. So that can be really a make it or break it sometimes when it does come to treatment. So I just wanted to put that out there too.
Yeah, thank you for that, because not being able to tell would change the game a lot, and I'm feeling anyway. So thank you, Jenna, for coming back again today, and it's always a pleasure to see you, and I'll see you in about a month.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, there we go. So let's see, Aldine, I will put a link down here. You asked how you might be able to write for HealthyPlace, so I will put a link there. And you are on YouTube, so I'll go to YouTube and do that. And I want to thank everybody for showing up today and for sharing. You can go to HealthyPlace.com and find out all kinds of in-depth information about schizoaffective disorder and schizophrenia, and I hope you do. I will see you again in a couple weeks. Thank you. Stop.